A warm welcome to another edition of Diplomatic Channel. I'm Amarachi Ubani. The National Primary Healthcare Development Agency has set Tuesday, October 8th, to begin Mpox vaccination in the country. Head of the Public Health Relations Unit at the NPHCDA, Remy Adeleke, says vaccine deployment will begin from October 3rd to the 6th. It comes as Nigeria received 10,000 doses of Genosis vaccines to Nigeria to mitigate the spread of Mpox in the country. Director General of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Dr. Muyi Aino, said the distribution of the vaccine will commence immediately and priority will be given to states with the highest cases and frontline workers.
We will continue to work with Nigeria on efforts to stop the spread of the monkeypox illness, and we will continue to look at how we can help Nigeria.
We believe our frontline health workers are at particular risk. We are also going to prioritize states that have had the highest number of cases. Many of them are in the south, but of course we're going to have to work with the states to develop state-specific plans, to make sure that the vaccine is appropriately deployed.
But there is a group of Nigerians unhappy about Mpox being declared a public health emergency by the World Health Organization and who are quite cautious about the emergence of vaccines to prevent the disease. On Monday last week, they held a press conference encouraging the health officials and Nigerians to do more research on the disease, testing and the vaccines. They highlighted the nation's COVID response that complied with WHO standards, proved non-effective in preventing the pandemic, and then questioned why Nigerians should believe them now. They even faulted testing a non-autopsy of Mpox cases, saying the vaccine is only targeted at certain classes of individuals.
A cursory reading of WHO's websites concerning Mpox show that the statistics that have been used to declare this public health emergency of international concern are unreliable. The reliance on PCR testing for diagnosis of this disease, when PCR is not a diagnostic test, is a concern, especially given the role that PCR testing played in the proliferation of diseases and positive tests rather than actual disease cases during COVID-19. There is an absolute absence of autopsy reports for deaths that are being claimed are due to Mpox. When people have disease and die, we are able to confirm categorically that that disease is what killed the patient through autopsy reports. We are being told that people are dying from Mpox and no autopsies are being carried out. Health financing that is focused on vaccine procurement for a self-limiting disease is bad medicine. We are spending money on the wrong things. Mass vaccination for general population is obviously the plan, because I am sure that Africa and definitely Nigeria does not have 10 million gays, transgenders, non-binary men who are having sex with men that they have planned these doses for. These doses are for the general public, and yet the vaccine is not indicated for the general population.
We have opportunities to look inwards to solve our health issues. Massive opportunities. 200 plus million people. If we look inward, we'll find our solutions and stop relying on these important things that many of us truly are in distrust of, whether it's vaccines or medications. We have our solutions here locally for viral problems. The other aspect of this is we as a people are getting weaker and weaker in terms of our immune system. Recently, I was on a radio program and they shared some statistics that malaria is getting worse since the 1970s, 80s, 90s, and now it's very serious in terms of the occurrence, incidence of malaria. And my response was because over the years, we've done things that have undermined our immune systems. Whether it's malaria, it's COVID, or it's Mpox, we must start looking inward. How do we improve our body metabolism, our body defense systems to withstand all that is going to be sent our way?
Joining me now is Nigerian Professor of Virology, Educational Administrator, and former Vice Chancellor of Redeemers University. Professor Oyewale Tomori was also Chairman, National Technical Committee on COVID-19 here in Nigeria. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Thank you, Amarachi. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's begin at the beginning, Professor. What is the Mpox?
Mpox is the disease caused by what they call Mpox, or used to be monkeypox, but it's now Mpox. It's unfortunate that it's called monkeypox because the monkeys got infected like any of us. So it doesn't really, that is the disease. But the thing about the pox is that the virus, everybody, every species has the pox, cowpox, chicken pox, monkey pox, human pox. But what we had before between that time and 1980 was what we call the smallpox. That was eradicated. And in its place now is what the monkeypox has come up to replace that one. The disease is like a lot of the virus infections we have. It comes with fever, headache, so sometimes you have pains around the lymph nodes of the throat. And in addition, then it then breaks out in what we call lesions on the body. This then turns into different kind of things, just like rash. And then it fills with pus. In the pus, it contains a lot of virus. This eventually would dry up. And if there's no secondary bacterial infection, then it doesn't leave any mark on the body. But sometimes when there's bacterial infection, then you then have the thing causing the big pox, either on the face or on the body. And the rash can be found all over the body and quite different from what you find in measles. So basically, that's what monkeypox is all about.
Now, I know that with viral diseases, there is no cure. Viral diseases run their course, and then afterwards, they disappear. Is that the same case with the Mpox?
Yeah, you're right. For most of the viral diseases, they probably run their course. But for some of them, we have drugs for them also. There's some that we have drugs that what we call this therapy can to actually take care of these viruses and limit their spread and limit the degree of infection that one gets. But for majority of the viruses, they will run their course, as you said, and the person will either recover or will die.
Wow. Only two options. You either recover or you die. Then how dangerous is Mpox as relates to death? What is the life expectancy, I guess, with the Mpox virus?
Yeah. Okay. Let me say there are two different kinds of pox viruses. There's one they call clade 1. There's another one they call clade 2. Clade 2 is what we find in West Africa, most of Nigeria, all across to Sierra Leone or Liberia. What's the name? Cameroon, which is next door to us, has both clade 1 and clade 2. Clade 1 is found mainly in the Central Africa, DR Congo, Southern Africa, East Africa. What has been occurring in the different parts in the past for the last 50 or so years, in the West Africa, we have been having the clade 2. In Southern Africa and East Africa, it's been clade 1, which I said has been going on around the world. But something happened in 2022 when the virus kind of got out of Africa and got into areas where it was not endemic. The situation was even compounded by the fact that the mode of transmission was mainly sexual.
So the National Primary Health Care Development Agency here in Nigeria has said that it will begin vaccination for Mpox from October 8th, 2024. And that's because Nigeria has become the first country to receive Mpox vaccines here in Africa. That's thanks to the United States government. The U.S. ambassador to Nigeria did present 10,000 vaccine doses to the NCDC last week. And, these are supposed to be distributed to the health centers and so that people can prevent the spread of COVID vaccine. But then there is another group of people who think that, these vaccines are a bit suspect. They are concerned about testing for the vaccines and proper testing for the Mpox. They actually fault the test for Mpox, saying that the PCR test, which was used during the COVID-19 period, is not sufficient to detect Mpox, and the vaccines, we really can't take them now.
Yeah, I listened to the clip that you mentioned, and like I said, it's a mixed bag of facts and fiction. It is not true that when you use PCR for COVID is not the same PCR for monkeypox. You have different reagents. The test may be, system may be the same, but you use different reagents. But even then, having said that, there are many in the past, how many cases of yellow fever, cholera, or whatever that we detect based on clinical science. I mean, a lot of the days when there were no labs, all our efforts were based on clinical science. So it is not just the lab alone that led to the declaration of monkeypox cases. They're looking at clinical science, they're looking at clinical symptoms, they're looking at the laboratory. The laboratory test, yeah, it may not be the best, but it will detect monkeypox when it is. And that's why I said, I don't kind of agree with that statement about PCR, number one. Secondly, I think they also made the issue about there was no autopsy or something.
Yeah, but before you continue, sorry, Professor, I'd like to play that clip, especially for our viewers, an excerpt of what a group of civil society said about the Mpox being a public health emergency and about the vaccines. I played a lengthier version earlier before the interview.
There is an absolute absence of autopsy reports for deaths that are being claimed are due to Mpox. When people have disease and die, we are able to confirm categorically that that disease is what killed the patient through autopsy reports. We are being told that people are dying from Mpox and no autopsies are being carried out. Health financing that is focused on vaccine procurement for a self-limiting disease is bad medicine.
Now, I recently visited the WHO website because they made reference to that. And the latest information about Mpox there is the major headline reads, WHO urges rapid access to Mpox diagnostic tests, invites manufacturers to emergency review. It says testing is key for people to get treatment and care as early as possible and prevent further spread. Now, isn't this similar to what this group is asking for?
No, what is happening is that the fact that the diagnostic reagents are not there. In fact, in the DR Congo, what is happening is that they're actually only doing laboratory tests for about 10% of the cases they're reporting. Not because they don't want to do the test, but the reagents are not there. And that's what WHO is calling for, that there should be increase in the number availability of reagents to test more people so you can better confirm. Of the 15,000 cases that DR Congo is reporting, they're only able to do tests for less than 10% of that. So this is the same type of thing we had during COVID. The more we test, the more we see the cases. If you don't do that, you are giving a much lower level of infection that you have. You remember during the COVID, the NCDC will give us data monthly or quarterly about how many cases are occurring. But there was also another study that was done which looked at people's antibody to COVID. Yeah. And we found that we're getting almost like 100 times more cases of people who had the infection, but who never showed, because what the NCDC is reporting are only people with cases.
Yes.
So those who have mild infection,
asymptomatic,
those who have recovered, are not showing up.
Yes. And once again, with the vaccines and again with this group, well, they say that, our own scientists have to test the vaccines to be sure that they are necessary for us, because they say the vaccines also contain a little bit of smallpox. And this could introduce, the smallpox virus also into the body when it is taken. They give examples of, the COVID vaccine, and they say that, the effects of the vaccine are still being felt today. People are still experiencing, various sorts of symptoms, and even claiming that some people just, the sudden death syndrome that seems to be, being reported around the world, people just dropping dead, for whatever reason, is partly because these people did take the COVID vaccine?
First of all, I'm in pure agreement with our colleagues on the fact that we need to get involved in clinical trials in Africa. You know, we are trying to eat our cake and have it. When they bring the vaccines, oh, no, we're not part of the test. When they say, come and test, oh, no, I don't want to be a guinea pig. You can't eat your cake and have it. At the same time, are we not the same people who have been using measles vaccine, yellow fever vaccines, all those polio vaccines, in which none of us were involved in the testing? And yet we see the effect of the good things they're doing. So before people make general statements, you should get in fact about what is happening. Yes, indeed, there are 2 different vaccines about 3 actually, of monkeypox vaccine. There's one they call the Gynus, which is actually, they use a virus that cannot multiply in the body. The ACAM 200, which is the one that they're talking about, was a modified smallpox vaccine. What we're getting is the Gynus, which is the one that has almost like a kill virus that cannot multiply. The Japanese have another one. I don't know whether we're going to get that one. So I think before people make something, give all the information to the people. Which of the vaccines are we getting? Is it the one that is the monkeypox, the one that has smallpox, or is it the one that contains the kill virus or something? That information is useful to people, not to give the wrong impression outside. And I think this is the message. The strength of us in Africa is in disease surveillance. We've had 100 years of looking at disease. You remember when, in 2014, when Ebola came into Nigeria, in Lagos? Within 3 months, we resolved it. Only about 20 cases, and I think 8 people died or 11 people died. Did we use any vaccine then? No, we didn't. What did we do? We put in our own disease surveillance. We did our contact tracing. We followed up with the cases. We isolated the cases and introduced IPC, infection prevention control, and we limited the infection. We have that strength. We have that ability. We've done. Kenya did it for anthrax. Uganda did it for Ebola. Why are we not putting our money in those areas? When I was growing up, each state had an EP division where they had their vehicle. If anything happened in any place, they went there. Today, the EP divisions have abandoned their duties to the NCDC, and they don't even have a bicycle to go and investigate anything.
We'll take a short break now. Diplomatic Channel will be right back to continue our conversation with Professor Oyewale Tomori on the Mpox. Stay with us. Welcome back. Let's continue my conversation with Professor Oyewale Tomori. We have to develop our healthcare systems. And there doesn't seem to be having much improvement since Ebola. It seems like, with COVID, we were a bit lax. We were more lax, depending especially on external help to get through the virus. I want to talk about, the way forward. For those people who are still skeptical about receiving the vaccines, of course, we'll encourage them to do more research on it. People have a right to decide what it is they want to do. But for those who may not even have heard about the existence of the vaccines, what can they do to prevent Mpox?
First and foremost, I think we go back to the question. I said we can actually do without vaccines if we do the first thing first. The first thing is prevention. The first thing is limit the spread. If you limit the spread, there'll be no international concern because you have carried out the simple basic. And again, I mentioned, I keep referring to the 2014 Ebola situation. Everybody thought when Ebola got into Nigeria, we're going to head out the end of the world with our population. But we did it. What did we do? We're not focusing on those. So for those who may never get the vaccine because the amount is so small, the thing to do is that when you see people with rash, just assume for the time being that this is monkeypox and quickly report to health authorities so they can check and confirm. And if they confirm that this is the case, isolate that person. And for those of them, and the thing about, I mentioned suddenly that the pus that comes in the rash is very heavily loaded with virus. And when the pus breaks, it can contaminate your bedding, the table, everywhere you are, becomes a fomite and a source of infection. You remember when I was telling the story about the traditional healer who would take the scab from somebody and dry it up. They take the same scab without drying up and throw it into somebody's house to cause infection. So they knew all those parts. So for you now that we have that information, when we see anybody with rash, our first suspicion this time is monkeypox. Then let them quickly go to the health center or wherever it is, and then do a proper identification. If that happens to be the case of monkeypox, isolate the person and do your normal infection prevention control practices. Meanwhile, continue to monitor those who have been in contact with those people to see whether they too are developing any rash or something. We need to also join with the government. It's only when we report that they know. You remember I mentioned something about the fact that the pus that comes up of this contains a lot of virus. We can contaminate the bed, contaminate the table, anywhere where you are. So there's also need to quickly follow up on those who have had contact with the person in that place. So that way we can actually limit the spread of this infection, just as we did with the Ebola in 2014. So that's probably much better and easier for us than looking out for vaccine, which we may never get, or we take years to get, or it will even go round, and that kind of thing. So there's something at hand we can do, and that's that community involvement, surveillance, identify the cases, report the cases when you get it, let the health authorities know, get the labs to confirm the diagnosis, isolate those cases which is confirmed, and follow up on those who are their contacts. That way we can actually limit the number of cases and not get into this situation where we're talking about international concern or emergency or whatever.
Yes, and just for information purposes, the person who's taking, what do you do when you discover that someone in your household has Mpox or is presenting with symptoms similar to Mpox, already has a rash, already has a fever and all of that? Do you take the person to the hospital yourself, or do you call for an ambulance?
Ideally, you should call for health authorities to come and pick the person up, because in the process of taking that person, you can actually be contaminating yourself. So you don't want to do that. As soon as you see a situation where it looks like monkeypox, call the health authorities. They have all the facilities, the gloves, the face masks, the gloves, the vehicle, and to take the people out and limit the spread and contact with the people. Usually, remember, we talk about human-to-human transmission. Yeah. If you break that, then you can actually break the transmission of the infection.
Yeah, and I just want to go a little further to talk about, children who are susceptible, to this virus, and they're still very young, so they're still being taken care of by their mothers, who are also susceptible because they really can't leave these children to take care of themselves. What do they do in that instance?
Again, we are talking of two people now getting infection. Or one, the child has it, must have got it from somewhere, we don't know where. But the mother that is taking it is also contaminated in a way. So we're actually not looking at the child alone, we're looking at the child and the mother and another person in that vicinity who must have come in contact. So all comes to the fact that once you isolate and be confirmed in one, 2, 3 people, you actually will isolate all of them, for the period until proven otherwise they don't have it, rather than leave them out in the environment when they then develop the disease and spread it. So when I have a family situation where a child gets and the parents are there, I think everybody is regarded as part of that infection. And then you do the isolation with all of them. Just as you treat one case, you also treat the same case until the others are proven otherwise that they don't have monkeypox.
Professor Oyewale Tomori, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for joining us on Diplomatic Channel and for addressing the issue of the Mpox virus.
Thank you, Amarachi. Have a wonderful week ahead.
Before we go on Diplomatic Channel, here are other discussions in diplomatic circles.
Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu is in China to attend the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation Summit and for a state visit. The visit is expected to enhance economic collaboration and attract investments to Nigeria. The president will be visiting prominent Chinese firms such as Huawei Technologies and the China Railway and Construction Corporation to accelerate the completion of the Ibia-Abuja segment of the Lagos-Kano Rail project. He will also meet with CEOs of 10 top Chinese corporations, which manage over $3 trillion in assets across sectors such as ICT, oil and gas, aluminium production, seaport development, finance, and satellite technology. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Aminu Tuga, has accepted a special scholarship for 20 Nigerian students to study at the prestigious European School of Management and Technology, Berlin, Germany. The scholarship program was announced at a special dinner organized in his honor by German entrepreneur and co-founder of Sapinder Group and fashion company, La Perla, Lars Windhorst. The event was held at the exclusive China Club in Berlin. Ambassador Tuga thanked Mr. Windhorst for his kind gesture and said the scholarship would create an opportunity for shared learning experiences for the beneficiaries. He also invited German dignitaries at the event to come and invest in Nigeria, highlighting remarkable strides taken by President Bola Tinubu. Partnership between Africans at home and in the diaspora is key to a formidable continental development, so says the chairman, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Mrs. Abike Dabiri Erewa. She was making the remark as she received a delegation from the U.S. Africa Chamber of Commerce to her office in Abuja. Mrs. Dabiri Erewa said Africa is rich in human and natural resources, which could help move the continent to greater heights. She said the Commission is ready to support and create the needed ecosystem for exponential investment in the motherland. She therefore called on Africans in the diaspora to identify and invest in the continent.
And this is where we end the program today. I'm Amarachi Ubani. I'll see you next time.